A true story-inspired emotional journey. It was supposed to be an ordinary Saturday. The kind where the sun hangs lazily in the sky, and kids run wild in the park while parents pretend they're not worried. Emily Carter sat on a wooden bench, coffee in hand, watching her 4-year-old daughter, Lily, chase bubbles across the grass. Lily wore her favorite yellow dress. She always said it made her shine like the sun. "Mom, look at me." She laughed, spinning in circles. Emily smiled. "I see you, sweetheart. Stay where I can see you, okay?" Lily nodded, and for a moment, everything was perfect. Then Emily's phone rang. She hesitated, glancing at Lily one more time before answering. It lasted less than a minute. Just a minute. When she looked up again, Lily was gone. At first, Emily didn't panic. Kids wander. They hide. They play games. "Lily," she called, standing up. No answer. "Lily." Louder this time. Still nothing. The laughter was gone. The air felt wrong. Within minutes, the park turned into chaos. Strangers joined the search. Someone called 911. A security guard started locking exits. Emily ran through the playground, her heart pounding so hard it felt like it might tear through her chest. "Have you seen my daughter? Yellow dress. She's this tall. She was right here." Faces blurred. Voices overlapped. But Lily had vanished. The search lasted all night. Then all week. Then all year. Her face was everywhere. On posters, billboards, news segments. Missing child. Lily Carter, age 4. Emily gave interviews, her voice breaking on live television. "If anyone knows anything, please. Just bring her home." People shared the story. Volunteers searched. Tips poured in. But none of them led to Lily. Time moved on. But Emily didn't. 5 years later, her house still looked the same. Lily's room remained untouched. Her stuffed animals lined up on the bed, her tiny shoes by the door. The yellow dress hung in the closet like a memory frozen in time. Friends stopped visiting. Family stopped asking. Even her husband, Daniel, couldn't carry the weight anymore. "I can't live like this, Em," he said one night, his voice hollow. She's gone." Emily shook her head. "No," she whispered. "She's out there." He left a month later. Grief had taken one daughter. And then, quietly, a husband too. But Emily never stopped searching. Not for one day. She learned everything. How to track missing persons reports, how to age progress photos, how to follow digital trails. She traveled across states chasing leads, some hopeful, most devastating. Every girl with blonde hair made her stop. Every familiar laugh made her turn. Every, almost, broke her heart all over again. 15 years passed. Then 20. Most people had forgotten Lily Carter. But Emily hadn't. She still woke up every morning and poured 2 cups of coffee. One for herself. One for the daughter she believed would come home. Then one day, her phone rang. It was a call from a nonprofit organization. They had rescued a young woman during an investigation. Early 20s. No clear identity. No family records. Fragmented childhood memories. But something about her case stood out. She mentioned flashes, the social worker said. A park, a yellow dress, and someone calling her Lily. Emily's hands started shaking. "That's my daughter," she whispered. The photo arrived minutes later. Emily stared at it, barely breathing. The girl looked different, older, guarded, shaped by years of something Emily couldn't yet understand. But the eyes, those were Lily's eyes. The process took weeks. DNA testing, interviews, careful confirmation, and then, the moment came. Emily stood in a quiet room, her heart racing like it had 20 years ago in that park. The door opened. A young woman stepped inside. They looked at each other, two strangers connected by something deeper than memory. "I don't really remember much," the girl said softly. Emily took a step forward. Her voice trembled. "Lily." The girl's eyes filled with tears. "I think that's my name." They collapsed into each other's arms. 20 years of pain, hope, and unanswered questions breaking all at once. Lily had been taken that day. Abducted, moved from place to place, her identity slowly erased. Her past buried under years of survival. But somewhere deep inside her, something had remained. A voice, a feeling, a connection she couldn't explain. Finding each other wasn't the end. It was the beginning. They had to rebuild everything. Trust, memories, love. They had to learn who they were, together, and apart. But this time, they had a second chance. Now, every morning, Emily still makes 2 cups of coffee. Only now, Lily sits across from her. And sometimes, when she laughs, Emily closes her eyes, holding onto the sound she once feared she'd never hear again. Because a mother's love doesn't fade with time. It waits, it searches, and sometimes, it finds its way home. They said she was lying, but the truth broke them all. The town of Millbrook, Ohio, was the kind of place where nothing really bad ever happened, or at least, that's what people like to believe. So when 16-year-old Sarah Mitchell walked into her school counselor's office one cold November morning and said, "Something's wrong, and nobody believes me," it didn't fit the town's story. Sarah wasn't the kind of girl people expected trouble from. She had quiet eyes, perfect attendance, and a reputation for being too sensitive. Teachers described her as polite. Classmates barely noticed her. But that day, something had changed. Sarah sat across from Mrs. Daniels, twisting her sleeves. I think someone is hurting my mom," she whispered. Mrs. Daniels paused. "Sarah, that's a serious thing to say. Are you sure?" Sarah nodded, her voice shaking. "I hear things at night. I see bruises." She says she's fine, but she's not. Within hours, the story spread quietly among staff. But instead of concern, doubt followed. Teenagers exaggerate, one teacher muttered. "Maybe she wants attention," another said. By the end of the day, a label had already formed. Sarah Mitchell was lying. Child Services did a brief check. Sarah's mother smiled politely, said everything was fine, and closed the door. No visible proof. No case. At school, whispers followed Sarah through the hallways. Why would she make that up? She's always been weird. Even her closest friends stopped sitting with her at lunch. At home, Sarah grew quieter. The house felt heavier each night. Doors slammed. Voices rose. Silence followed. And still, no one listened. One night, the noise was louder than ever. A crash, a cry, then silence. Sarah stood frozen in her room, heart pounding. This time, she didn't hesitate. She grabbed her phone and dialed 911. Her voice shook, but her words were clear. "Please, you have to come. Something is really wrong." When the police arrived, everything changed. What they found behind that quiet suburban door wasn't the perfect family everyone believed in. Sarah's mother was injured. scared, exhausted from hiding the truth for years. The evidence was undeniable. The same people who had dismissed Sarah's words now stood in stunned silence. News spread quickly this time, but differently. No whispers, no gossip, just shock. At school, teachers avoided Sarah's eyes. Classmates didn't know what to say. Because the truth had done something powerful, it didn't just expose what was hidden. It exposed everyone who chose not to see it. Weeks later, Sarah sat on the same chair in the counselor's office. This time, no one doubted her. "Mrs. Daniels spoke softly. I'm sorry we didn't listen sooner." Sarah looked down, then back up. "I didn't need people to believe me," she said quietly. "I just needed someone to care enough to check." They said she was lying. But the truth didn't just prove her right. It revealed how wrong everyone else had been. The rain had already begun when he walked away. Not the kind that crashes against rooftops and demands attention, but the soft, steady rain that feels like the sky is breathing in silence. She stood at the doorway, her hand frozen midair, as if she could still reach him, still stop him. But he didn't turn back. Not once. Behind her, 4 small lives waited. The oldest boy, barely 12, stood stiff and quiet, his jaw clenched in a way no child should be. 2 daughters huddled together, confused, frightened, searching their mother's face for answers she didn't have. And the youngest, a toddler, played with a broken toy on the floor, too young to understand that something permanent had just happened. The door remained open long after he disappeared. That night, the house felt bigger than ever, and emptier than it had any right to be. She didn't cry that night. She wanted to. Her chest ached with it. But there were uniforms to wash. There was leftover rice to divide carefully into 4 plates. There were questions in her children's eyes she couldn't answer. So she swallowed her tears like they were something bitter, something she had no choice but to consume. And the next morning, before the sun even thought of rising, she got up. Because life didn't stop. The first year was the hardest. Not because of hunger, though there was plenty of that. Not because of exhaustion, though her body constantly trembled with it. It was the silence, the absence of another adult voice, the empty space on the floor where he used to sit, the way neighbors whispered when she passed by, their pity heavier than insults. 4 children, how will she manage? He left her. There must be a reason. Women like her, they can't keep a home together. She heard it all. She said nothing. She began taking whatever work she could find. Cleaning houses where people avoided eye contact. Washing clothes until her fingers cracked and bled. Stitching late into the night under a dim light that flickered like it might give up any second, just like her. Some days, she ate nothing. When her youngest cried from hunger, she would smile and say, "I already ate earlier." When her daughters asked why she wasn't sitting with them, she would say, "I'm not hungry today." Her lies were gentle, but they cost her everything. The children grew in a house built not of bricks, but of sacrifice. The eldest son stopped being a child. At 12, he learned to bargain at the market. At 13, he started working after school. By 14, his hands had hardened, and his laughter had disappeared. Once, a teacher told him, "You're very bright. You could go far." He smiled politely, but deep inside, he already knew, his dreams had been quietly replaced with responsibility. The daughters learned strength in silence. They watched their mother closely. The way she hid her pain. The way she smiled even when her eyes looked tired. The way she stitched torn clothes as if she were stitching together a life constantly falling apart. They helped without being asked. One cooked. One cleaned. Both grew older far too quickly. Sometimes at night, they whispered to each other. "Do you think he'll come back? I don't know, but I hope Amma doesn't wait for him." And the youngest, he grew up with a father-shaped emptiness. At first, he asked questions. "Where is Abba? When will he come? Did I do something wrong?" Each question was a knife. Each answer was a lie wrapped in love. "He's working far away. He'll come when he can." "No, my child, never you." But children grow. And one day, he stopped asking. That was the day her heart broke in a way no one could see. Years passed. Not easily. Not kindly. But they passed. There were moments of joy, small, fragile, but real. A shared laugh over a burnt meal. A festival celebrated with handmade decorations. A school certificate proudly held like a trophy. In those moments, she felt something close to victory. Maybe she was enough. Maybe they would be okay. But life has a cruel way of testing those who have already endured too much. One winter, the cold arrived early. It wasn't just the air, it was everything. The walls felt colder. The nights felt longer. Even hope seemed to shiver. She developed a cough. At first, she ignored it. "It's nothing," she told her children. Then came the fever. "It will pass," she insisted. Then came the weakness, the kind that seeps into your bones and refuses to leave. Still, she worked. Because stopping wasn't an option. Because rest was a luxury she had never been allowed. Because if she fell, everything would fall with her. One evening, as she returned home carrying a small bag of groceries, her vision blurred. The ground beneath her feet shifted. And before she could steady herself, everything went dark. When she opened her eyes, she was in a hospital. Her children surrounded her, their faces pale with fear. The eldest held her hand like he was afraid she might disappear. The daughters stood close, tears slipping silently down their cheeks. The youngest clung to the edge of the bed, whispering, "Amma, please wake up." She smiled weakly. "I'm here." But her voice didn't sound like hers anymore. The doctors spoke quietly in the corner. "Too weak. Too late. Too long without treatment." Words that carried weight, even when unspoken. That night, as the others slept in uncomfortable chairs, she stayed awake. She watched her children. Really watched them. Not as they were now, but as they had once been. Tiny hands gripping her fingers. Soft voices calling her name. Little faces looking at her like she was their entire world. She realized something then. She had been their world. And now, her time in it was running out. In the early hours of the morning, she called her eldest closer. Her voice trembled. "I'm sorry." He shook his head immediately, tears spilling over. "No, don't say that. You gave us everything." She looked at each of them. "I wanted to give you more." Her daughter leaned forward, holding her tightly. "You gave us love. That's more than enough." The youngest began to cry. "I'll take care of everyone, Amma. I promise." She smiled. A tired, fragile, but peaceful smile. "I know you will." Outside, the rain began again. The same quiet rain from the night he left. But this time, it felt different. Not empty, not abandoned, but full of something unspoken, something final. As the first light of morning touched the window, she closed her eyes. And this time, she didn't open them again. The funeral was simple. There were no grand speeches. No crowds. Just 4 children, standing beside the woman who had been their entire world. Neighbors spoke of her strength. She was incredible. A woman like her, rare. She never complained. But her children knew the truth. She had complained, not with words, but with sleepless nights, with silent tears, with a body that kept going long after it should have stopped. She wasn't unbreakable. She broke every single day. And still, she chose to stand. Years later, the children built lives she had dreamed of. The eldest became successful, but carried a quiet sadness in his eyes. The daughters found happiness, but never forgot the woman who taught them how to survive it all. The youngest grew into a man who never once let anyone feel abandoned. They had everything she once wished for them. Except her. And sometimes, on quiet nights when the rain begins to fall, they sit in silence, listening, remembering, and somewhere, deep in their hearts, they still hear her voice. Just one more day.